I was interested in spirituality from a very early age, like around 11 or 12. I got the Yogananda chants a few years later. I think I was the only one in Ohio that chanted. When I started teaching, it was hard to do because I didn't know what the fuck people wanted and how the fuck to give it to them. And I meditated year after year. The first few years after I left college, I had gotten my degree and was working on a PhD in something or other. It was very hard. My legs were not used to sitting. And I had to go to Mount Baldy Zen Center for a period of training. And they wouldn't let me sit the way I sat, which was seiza, where you sit on your heels, like in Japan, for everything. Here they wanted me to be cross-legged. And I busted my ass to get into partial half lotus, and eventually full lotus. Full lotus, there's an incomparable difference in the power between correct sitting and full lotus. And how painful it is. If you can get in a full lotus at all, or more usually a half lotus, and it feels very strong, like your muscles are being strained a lot, just continue sitting in pain. The pain goes away 5 or 6 minutes later, and you enter a fast world. At least I did. First thing that happens is my mind, moved downward into my thorax. And once I did that, my body didn't move. So 50 years later, I still sit in meditation, but usually it's not formal meditation because I have no longer that warrior spirit in me. Now it's a much more wussy spirit, which I enjoy because it's gentler. I was terrible as a sitter back then because I thought I knew everything. I still do, but back then I was deluded. Sitting was so painful for me. Even when I went to Mount Baldy Zen Center, but I learned to sit full lotus by going through the pain. And that's when I noticed when I was there, and I've written about this and I've talked about this, is the arrangement was that the Zendo was up here on a little hill. A little further up is where Roshi had his cabin. And the day would start maybe around 4:30 or something like that. And there, on a normal day, there'd be 2 or 3 sittings in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. And it was cold. It got to -6 degrees one of the days I was there. And the windows were a joke because they were just paper. And we were exposed, no heat in the Zendo, except for the first 15 minutes. So I highly recommend anybody go on vacation there. It'll be a vacation you'll remember the rest of your life if you survive. But I was wound so tight that the Jikijitsu who walked around the gym with the stick over his head, his shoulder, they would not stop at my place and bat me over the shoulder because my sitting was perfect. And they knew that I was an angry fuck back then and that I might just get off the stool and bash them with their own stick. But I persisted and had some ecstatic experiences in meditation, but that's not what spirituality is about. Spirituality is about finding you instead of living in a cone of words and concepts and expectations. Like when you buy a car, you expect it to start every time you try to start it. You expect it to drive without wheels falling off. You have expectations. Everybody in normal life always walks around with some expectations and remnants of their past, how things should be, and what they've experienced in the past, and what they see or feel as spirituality or lack thereof. But in Zen, there isn't a feeling of spirituality except for the rituals that Roshi did before the statue of the Buddha in the Zendo. It was all matter of fact. Just be here now. There was no godliness in there, no elevation to heaven, no explosion of wonderful enlightenment, just incessant pain over the first few years sitting in lotus. But even then, I realized that this training was absolutely necessary to attain different states of mind. And at that time, I thought it was really important to have a change away from ordinary consciousness to something else. Well, at Mount Baldy, I find that something else almost immediately. And I'll describe it. And even as it's changed over time. If you sit in a chair or on the floor, and I recommend the floor because you can do full lotus on the floor later, but you can't do it on a chair unless it's a very big chair. But I would sit in it's very strong, painful half lotus. And after a few minutes, something would happen. It felt like my mind was dropping out of my head, going through my throat and resting in my heart and lower abdomen. And after that happened, the pain stopped. And I sat for another 20 minutes in very blissful, happy, empty spirit where the whole world was just one big light show and sound show. The Buddhists, at least there, understand that the world that we know is not real because it keeps changing, changing, changing. And the more you meditate on yourself, you become more aware of how the world is changing. But the part of you that's witnessing on the inside in meditation isn't changing and never does change. When you can enter that vast cloud of unknowing, you enter a world of new experience of the oneness and completeness of everything simultaneously, so that you're in a perfect place. You feel like you've transcended everything, and you really have. When you can do that, and when you can sit so that your brain drops into your heart or stomach, that's the beginning of your spiritual life. Because sitting meditation is like a blowtorch compared with what I was able to do prior to going Mount Baldy's. There, the regimen is so powerful. The need for order and perfection in movement and sound. So you're always watching your ass, I should say. When I went years later to Keplo's place, they huffed and they puffed and they were sounding like they were lifting barbells rather than the quietness at Mount Baldy. And at Baldy, you were supposed to be very silent and just watch and listen. But watching and listening by itself can get very boring unless what you experience in meditation is exceptional in one way or the other. Now, when I was there, I had already been meditating a couple of years. I had quit my job. I was living in a one-bedroom apartment near Case Western Reserve University. And at that time, I had the warrior spirit about conquering spirituality and finding the roots of it and finding everything about it that I could. But in meditation, all I found was pain. And the pain gave way to a vast emptiness. And in that vast emptiness, I was nothing. Everybody else and everything else was nothing also. But at the same time, it was perfect. There's no clashing. There's no movement of energy one way or the other. You are still sitting in the emptiness of God, of nothingness. Over the years, that sitting changed. I became much more proficient in entering samadhi very shortly after starting meditation. But I meditated less because after a while I thoroughly knew this state of emptiness. It's like sitting in Grand Canyon at the edge of a cliff and looking up and seeing the immensity of the night sky with the 6,000 stars that are visible from Earth, or 3,000, whatever the number is. And how the vast emptiness fills you. And when that happens, you can't think anymore. You don't want to think anymore. You just want to be. Want to be in your own power, in your own life, in your own energy. And you become acquainted with the different energies and flows of energies within your body. There's how your body is prior to samadhi, and it's a different experience after samadhi, after you enter samadhi. Samadhi is a vast emptiness, like I said. It's like doing meditation on the side of the Grand Canyon with a 5,000-foot drop just 3 feet away. And the sky and the earth join each other as emptiness. And you sit in the middle, feeling everything, experiencing everything, including states of consciousness you didn't know existed before. But after a while, all those states, they come and they go, they come and they go, and you get used to them, and you'll find that there's nothing there. You just go into these deep states of bliss and happiness. But you do see things too, especially for a beginner, which I wasn't when I went there, which is the need to disentangle yourself from your mind, your everyday mind, the one that gets excited if there's a fly in the house, the one that feels depressed because of their economic condition, the one feels sorrow because of the death of somebody else. The thing is, in meditation, when you're sitting in lotus quietness, these things are felt so much more intensely, but at the same time, there's a whole background and foreground filled with bliss and just a wanting to shout in joy about being alive. And all the other crap is going through you, and it flows through, and you let it go. You let it go, let it go. And with the experience of the power of samadhi, interest in the world disappears more and more because you want to be in that state all the time. And that state has lots of changes for your body. It gets healthier. It doesn't stay healthier. After 70, anything goes. But I still feel so goddamn happy when I'm able to sit like this and talk to you. And if you weren't there, to just be able to sit by myself. But now I'm joined by at least 12 different people sitting in meditation. So we got a group here. And can you feel the power of the group and also the bliss of the group? I don't know whether you can or not, or you're still waiting for that. There's difficulties in learning how to do meditation. My body, I had a struggle with it to be able to remain in samadhi cross-legged. And I had an easier time with half lotus. But I haven't gotten close to a lotus in 6 or 7 years. I don't care anymore. I rarely do it. Walgreen is calling me. It's for prescription. Now, when I sit, I'm not thinking anymore. Not even about my upcoming lunch, what I'm going to have, or bills that I have to pay that are in the background piling up. Or the guy with the loud muffler next door who just loves revving his car when he takes off and he comes back in the afternoon. All of these things are noted. They don't touch you anymore. Your nature is emptiness, and the phenomena don't touch you. The field of you, of your consciousness, is the extent of the world. The world was born when you are born. Yes, everybody has their own life to lead, but I don't know whether Mark actually exists or not, or just a phenomenon of watching Mark. After a while, it doesn't matter. They all go together. But the key to Zen spirituality is meditation. Meditation on emptiness. Meditation on the void, the great void. And what happens over the years is you progressively lose the excitement of being alive in order to do something. And instead, you use being alive and being awake in consciousness to practice meditation. Because the meditation is like a vast whirlpool with you at the center and everything radiating from you and coming back at you. The experience is intensely ecstatic because you're suspended in emptiness, and the only thing you feel is the boundlessness of space around you. And it's filled with a very sweet kind of angelic presence. And these things change through time. The angel more or less disappears, leaving you with a vast emptiness with nothing. And you wonder why. Why the fuck would I want to have vast emptiness with nothing? Shit, I'll do that for years after I'm dead. You got to do it though while you're alive. You got to die to yourself while you're alive. And that means when you have an urge to do something, like going out and doing something or getting a cup of coffee or doing this or doing that, you realize it doesn't have to be done. You don't have to have the coffee. You'd like it, but you don't have to get out of your comfortable samadhi to fix a glass of or a cup of coffee for yourself. It's like you see everything differently. The room around me is but a projection of phenomena. It has no reality because it's less real than I am. When I close my eyes, it disappears. When I go into the other room, it disappears. So our external reality is constructed from our senses. Therefore, the body naturally is at the center of the observation of the universe and of one's own self. And that's what you become after many years of sitting. You become that emptiness, and you really don't want to be disturbed because it's so beautiful being nothing. I can't tell you how ecstatic you could feel sitting by yourself, or especially sitting in the zendo with a dozen other people and all doing this meditation at once and responding to the clackers and the kyosaku and the bells that ring that tell you what to do next. And there's not a human voice to be heard. And what do you get out of this? Ecstatic state after ecstatic state. What does that do for you? Well, you no longer get depressed or anywhere near depressed. And if you get depressed, You'd enjoy it because it's a new sensation that you haven't felt for 20 years or so. Wow, it's back. Finally, depression is back, and I can watch it, and you can groove on it then when you're doing it in meditation after you learn how to get into samadhi. Now, there are a lot of spiritual people that wouldn't touch meditation with a 10-foot pole, but they do so in a different way. A lot of them have a guru, and the guru becomes the center of their being. And it's all about satisfying that guru and getting the benevolence of enlightenment from the guru. So you kiss the guru's ass for many years until you get it yourself. Because after 20 years, you don't care about the guru or Zendo or anything, because you're grooving on yourself and the power of yourself and that you rest in. Your body, it feels like it's made out of iron, yet it's very mobile, but it feels very, very powerful, like in nothing you knew when you were 30. You get to be an old fuck, but a very powerful one too. It's unimaginable the kind of happiness you can have resting in nothingness. When there's nothing to do, you don't have to get up and get a cup of coffee for anybody or feed the cat right then. You can put it off or get it done before satsang. Because resting in nothingness is the ultimate experience. And you and the universe become one. There's no longer a separation. You as an observer, because the observer is everything. It's hard to put the last degree together in a sentence construct that makes any meaning, because what you're talking about is not intellectual knowledge or understanding, but the bliss of emptiness, of nothingness, the power of nothingness, and the power of the ability just to sit still and watch and feel without running. And back in the old days, I remember people coming to the Zendo and having problems. And after 4 or 5 days of sitting, no more problems. We'd walk outside barefooted. They wore sandals, but mine kept falling off. In the snow, when it was around freezing or a little cooler. You just walked in the snow between the bouts of sitting and walking to and from Zendo to Roshi's presence in his house where you had satsang. There's never been in my life an experience since Mount Baldy and the power it yields, but it doesn't yield a lot of understanding at that point in your practice. The understanding comes later after you've surrendered completely time after time after time after time to the ambience of wherever you're at. Some of the best times I had sitting, as I look back and remember, is many years ago, going on vacation at a dentist's house in Beverly Hills and going out the back porch and sitting hour after hour. And my cat back then would just lay in my lap and we'd have samadhi together. It turns out that that trip was not such a good idea to do. The dentist turned out to be a jerk and was accusing us of theft of a brooch or something or other. So much for that. Remember, you're always in charge of yourself. And even if you don't feel like it now, you're going to be held responsible for it at some point or another. So, by learning how to sit strongly and to become nothing, you sort of eat all of those things that appear to be external and suck them into yourself, where they become quiet and peaceful as you are. And all the drama leaves. The drama comes back, though, when you confront your wife or a snarling dog that wants to chew you up. In those moments, everything changes back into being in the world. But after a while, the great monks, they don't go back there. Now, you spent the last 25 years or 30 years sitting in nothingness. And they become a center of peace in the world of strife, of depression, of anger, of war. And then you become more like Muktananda, who would love to watch battles like the ancients did from the side of the hill, looking down at the troops fighting. There is a lot of Sturm drawn in being at Keplo's Zen Center that I didn't find in any other Zen center. But what you do find is happiness. And the happiness happens by the disappearance of the negativity, because you feel both the negativity and the positivity the same. But the positivity seems to wear out after a while, and even the negativity, the wholeness, has this ecstatic note following you everywhere, which sort of is a safety zone for you to be in when helicopters and bombs are crashing around you. But it's what you seek is actually the sake, it's the state itself of nothingness, of boundless nothingness, and seeing that you are nothingness. And doing the koans, like with Mount Baldy ones, how to shift your identification from yourself sitting in the zendo, but becoming a bird singing in a tree outside the zendo. You actually experience the shift from being you sitting in the zendo in lotus to going into samadhi and then being that bird, chirping, chirping, chirping. But other things catch your mind too when you're in that state, especially jet airliners when they pass overhead. You can become a jet airliner. It's quite an experience. You feel you're flying along at 300 miles per hour coming in for a landing, and you feel so fucking ecstatic. You don't want to land. The key, I think, I would say to Zen is learning like to be a kind of shark. To himself, he feels his own strength, his own power, his own hungers too. And he goes out and kills things to eat. But a monk and ordinary people don't have to do that. But the sense of power is there. And I'm not sure it's a sense of power, but it's a sense of ecstatic life. It feels like you've got all the power in the world passing through you. So the world becomes much more intimate than before, finding out what it's like from the inside. We all know what the world is like on the outside and how being outside of that world leads to states of depression, anger, fear, and all the other ones. Oh, and stagflation, just where you nothing is rising inside of you and you just feel bummed out. But when you're in touch with that power within through repeated meditation, there's nothing like it. And when you're out of formal meditation and sense you're still in meditation, because there becomes a psychic body around you that fills the room with your own presence, and you are there completely at peace no matter what is happening. Because you can sit and you can have a hurricane pass over you, and the zendo could have been blown down around you, but you'd still be sitting on your cushions after the zendo was blown away, and you're in the midst of the winds from the hurricane, and it doesn't touch you at all. And the truth of the zendo is you have other people living there, and learning how to have peace when there are 30 other people with completely different attitudes and agendas than you. There's a lot of friction then, and the friction may manifest itself in being periods of anger and resentment and things, usual things like human condition. But when you go into samadhi, the ones that benefited from sitting, all that disappeared. And you were just one with yourself, and the self was ecstatic. And to me, it still is ecstatic. The ecstasy comes and goes, but the remembrance of the steadiness of that state is always upon you. So you don't have to go off half-cocked to do something. You just let it go and don't do it. And at first you feel like you're playing hooky. You're not going to school. And in this case, you're not getting involved in the world and somebody ranting and raving or airplanes going overhead noisily. None of that makes any difference because you feel so fucking good about yourself and your own experience, your own beingness. Your own beingness becomes magic and elevated and ecstatic again. And after a while, experiencing that constant state of emptiness or either witness, and then gluing yourself to what is witnessed at the same time over time, phenomenality and noumenality become joined like this. So you become the bird even while you're separate as a body. You become the sound of a passing bus. You become the bass. You may even feel like a bus. And when it's past, you're still there empty. The state of emptiness can contain any state you think of, and in itself is very ecstatic. But after you've exhausted all the states that one can have, you still want to sit because it's habit. And it's habitual to drop your mind and enter the vast emptiness around you, which is a kind of buffer also between you and irritating things to do or irritating people to be around. So I urge you, learn how to meditate. And you have to realize different schools of spirituality have different feelings. Like the Muktananda one was filled with pettiness of people in and around the Zendo. It's because quiet sitting was not emphasized, and instead trying to feel ecstatic, the spiritual ecstasy of being in a Zendo or around a guru was the emphasis. And it's true. When you're in a Muktananda Zendo or center and you practice, it's much different than at Mount Baldy or with other Zen centers. Other Zen centers, other non-Zen centers, I should say, like Muktananda, emphasize love or quietness sometimes, or divine energy. That's where they go, divine energy. So everything becomes energy around them. They talk about energies all the time. When you've had enough of the energies, you don't talk about the energies anymore, because you could talk about different kinds of internal states all day long, but a person may only recognize two or three of them. They may be looking for a different state, and you may touch on it in your lecture, and then they feel ecstasy of that moment of realization. I'd say the learning process is learning how to tie together all the various states of the world and the mind in yourself, until you've escaped the world and exist only in your own energy, which means you don't fight with other people anymore. You're at peace, even if they're complete assholes. And you may strive to be an asshole yourself, just for some reason or another, you get a bug up your ass to go fuck somebody up and see how they react. And people did that too with Roshi, trying to shock him or something like that. But he was unperturbed. At least he appeared to be so. But after a long day of sitting, the next day, you'd hear about changes that are going to be made in the Zendo or in the whole center, which came from Roshi's experiences with you the day before. So everything becomes integrated. If people stay long enough, you have complete peace and the ability to eat any negative emotional state. I sort of enjoy flying off at the handle when something comes up that irritates me. Then people learn not to get too close with negativity towards me because I know that I'll respond tenfold. And that's what Roshi used to do. People were so terrified of him at Mount Baldy and elsewhere too. You learn to wrap all of your human emotions around a center of emptiness. They're just thoughts, they're just emotions spinning, spinning, and you can choose to join them or just watch them. Because when you watch them, you enter a different state altogether of being the observer. And this is an ecstatic state also. None of these states may seem to be ecstatic. The first 5 years of sitting, they weren't for me. I was struggling to understand, to realize, to become enlightened. And all of that went away over the years when it just felt so wonderful to sit in silence and in nothingness. So from that point of view, it's easy to welcome death because that's being an ecstatic state permanently. So they think. Or they don't know. It's another thing. Don't know mind. Don't make up all these things like I do about magical states and all that. Just, I don't know none of that shit. I'll ask Sarah or Spencer or Mark. Let him be the teacher and run the Zendo. See if he likes it then. Mark has become quite powerful. He's sort of quieted down and he feels that ecstatic state more and more in the quietness state. And he has a really good understanding of what's happening to him and the teachings in general. Congratulations, Mark. You're doing well. You would never hear that from Roshi, though. He'd say something like your asshole isn't aligned with your nose or something like that. Never got any positive feedback. But you don't need it when you're in your own self. Because you're floating like a ship on a vast emptiness of bliss. And with really a deep baked feeling inside of yourself that nothing of this matters. It's all the same. Whether you're suffering or you're depressed, it's the same as being non-depressed or being ecstatic. These just things pass through you and you observe them, but they have nothing to do with you because you're vast emptiness, which contains all things, including those emotions. But the times of ecstasy and bliss can become so powerful that you seek that state again, time after time, and it eludes you. It sort of sneaks up on you and comes to you when you don't expect it. But the daily sitting is absolutely necessary because the ultimate state is to be everything and to be blissful and ecstatic and powerful all at the same time. It's really intense experience because the intensity is in you, not around you anymore. But in the end, if you asked any Roshi what life is like after death, they'll do like most of the great Zen masters have said and done in situations like that. I don't know. I haven't died yet. How should I know what life after death is like when I can only imagine it's like sleep with the lack of phenomena? But there might be a different kind of phenomena after death. The visible and feeling parts of yourself, they disappear. And then you just become like an energy thing, an electric wire that power passes through doing nothing. In any event, you leave the world of just being an object, a three-dimensional object in a four-dimensional universe. All of that kind of understanding disappears. So if somebody asks you what you're thinking or what you're doing, it's, I don't know, you're not paying any attention to it. And you're really happy not paying any attention to it. You get to watch and feel the buzz around you and join in the energy externally as you want it. And death doesn't frighten you because all the time you're living in emptiness. So what's different from that and death? Okay, time for questions and or responses from you. You, my wonderful audience that hangs around with me no matter what I do or what you do. I love Adam's property in Texas. All the deer, I think he sent me a picture with 9 or 10 deer in it. It looks so delightful. And it happens to him day after day after day. Can you hear the deer and the antelope play there? What about you guys? What about you, Bernadette? You always seem to be in a very deep state, and it seems a lovely state too. But is that true?
Yes, yes.
Tell me about it.
Oh, it just feels like my deep self pulls me, kind of absorbs me into myself. I don't know how to say it.
No,
And
it's perfect.
okay, when you talk about the oneness, I really like that because I feel like when you talk about sinking into the body, it feels like it expands into like the whole universe is my body. And
Yeah,
all those things happening are happening inside of me. And so that I feel them, like you said, the airplane and the bird, and it just feels like, and it's just, it is ecstatic. It is wonderful. And I don't want to go back into the mind. So I spend a lot of time like that.
I know. You've got the whole world in your hand, the whole wide world in your hands. Thank you. Just keep it up.
Thank you.
Chris, what about you? You're equally settled too. At least you appear to be.
I'm sorry. What?
What goes on with you in meditation and in your life?
Hmm. talk.
Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
You'll get used to doing it, though, after
Okay.
you experience it enough. It's when you first start experiencing samadhi that it's hard to get out of it, to go back into the putrid earth. Okay, we'll skip you for a while till you think of it.
Okay.
Tom, what about you? You don't have to say anything if you don't want to.
Meditation was quietness. What's going on in my life? Just closed my clinic. I'm moving into retirement. So all sorts of mundane, getting rid of furniture and stuff.
How does it make you feel on a on an average basis?
Relieved. Nice to let go. Look
Really?
forward to having. In fact, I'm already taking more time at the expense of having to meet a deadline. So, but I look forward to more meditation, more exercise.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Good seeing you. Mark, same question.
Edgy, I really don't know how to follow up those effusive words of praise. Thank you for that. Yeah, like at this point, everything comes down to a singularity. It comes down to one thing. And the one thing is felt, it's lived, but it's really hard to talk about. But it comes after a long time of going back and forth between the open, blissful state and the closed, contracted, self-referential state. After going through that for a few years, it finally started to sort itself out. And it, like, I didn't mind that I wasn't progressing for a few years, but it's nice that I've moved past it. And really, a lot of it is just sorting out aspects of my existence that I wasn't really being honest about or wasn't really dealing with fully. So I'll just say that, but the singularity, yeah, it's like you talk about oneness, I talk singularity, it's different words, same thing. This may sound trivial or pedantic or nitpicking or whatever, but I don't like the word nothingness because to me, like I understand it's tradition, I understand like it's a Buddhist thing, it's whatever. But like all language, it's misleading because what we're really talking about is supreme fulfillment, supreme satisfaction. So that's the flip side of the nothingness, is that of resting in oneself and there not being anything else needed. It's supreme being. So it's a limitation of language, really. It's not, I'm not saying you said the wrong thing or that Buddha had the wrong idea. I'm just saying language is can be very misleading to those that are not familiar with what we're talking about, that's all. The last thing I want to say is certain things that I've read have resonated with me. And one thing that comes to mind is when Ramana was asked, what's it like after enlightenment? Am I going to be different? Am I like, how am I going to be after enlightenment? And Ramana said, exactly the same, just without the limitations, which I think is a very beautiful and succinct answer. That's it, Edgy. Thanks for everything. And your talk today was very, very good, by the way. Although you rehash certain talking points that you've spoken about, you did break through to, I feel, to a depth that and an inspirational aspect that was really good. So thank you for that as well.
Okay, thank you. All the other people hide. They don't want to be called on to talk about themselves. Like Michael. I could ask Michael to speak, but he won't. He'll stay dark. Michael, what are you up to? Watch. See? Spencer's here today. He's actually on camera rather than hiding in the background. It looks like you have a crucifix on your shirt. Is that a microphone?
That's a medical cross, I think.
Okay, I can talk now, if you wish.
Go ahead.
When you first called on me, it was a huge effort to move and to reconnect with the body. I didn't, it, everything, it was such a, it was a big, it was an experience of so much in big, large, nothing. Uh, like like I always said, it was nothing and everything at the same time. And everything was in it. Your voice was in it,
Exactly so.
but it wasn't. I could hear you, but I, in a sense, didn't have ears. I mean, it's like I didn't have a body, but I could feel and hear. And when you called my name, it was like this thing, I don't know what to call it, this object appeared in my awareness. It felt like do something, but I couldn't. Well, maybe I didn't want to, or it was so far away, the effort would have been, it was just so, it would have been so much to move. And to move and think is so far away that it took some time to come back to this body and move it. because it was much, much more than the body. And to get limited again to the body took a bit of effort and willingness. And most times I don't want to. I don't want to move. I don't want to. My body's sunk. It's kind of melted into the awareness. And to come back to it and make it move is not, doesn't feel good. It feels limiting. And I'm thinking, I'm talking, and that's like head, mouth. And it's so, I feel like I'm back here now rather than everywhere. And when I start meditating, it's like, I think you said this, burning out. It's like down and out, real, and everything's gone. I mean, everything's gone, but there's everything there. I feel things, but they're all part of this space. I can feel, I have thoughts and I can feel things, but they're part of it. And I don't really, they feel, I'm loosely attached. I feel them loosely. I guess that's enough for now.
You feel blissful.
Well, that's a word that people use that word all the time, and I have no idea what they mean. I'll tell you what I mean by it. For me, I feel calm, peace, serenity, vastness, gentle peace. There's no, I mean, I'm not happy in a sense. I don't like getting a Christmas present or something. It's more like just a feeling of, I call it okayness. Everything's everything's okay. It's not, it just is. And it's a wonderful feeling of just being is. I don't know if you want to call that bliss or what, but that's how I feel. And it's hard to put that into words. And the two words that feel most accurate to me are okayness and isness.
And what is this?
Isness, just being, just isn't. I don't know if you want to call that bliss or what, but that's how I feel. Those are the words that make sense to me when I put this into words to describe it.
One of the great powers you can acquire after a long time of meditation is just to be able to remain neutral while the world around you is exploding in anger or confusion. You see the same world as everybody else does, but you don't see the knots that seem to preoccupy them. There are no knots anymore that make you feel tense or angry. All those knots have been untied, and you can't get them back anymore. And what it feels like to have no knots is what I've been talking about, is the ecstasy. It changes into ecstasy, Chris, the more you feel it, especially since you and Bernadette are playing off each other's samadhis. It's enjoyable watching the two of you doing it together.
What you just said about knots, and that's really what I'm feeling is everything is okay. I might not like it. I might have feelings of of I prefer this or that, but it doesn't matter because that's just my mind. What's
Yes.
really happening, it's just, it's okay. It's just happening. That's why I use the word okayness and isness, because it's not good, it's not bad. It's just happening. It just is. And judgment is here. When I'm other than, and that's, but what I really feel is it doesn't matter. It's all okay. Even I wrote to you this. I have this recurring vision for some reason of like a cheetah killing a gazelle or an impala on, the Serengeti or whatever. And I have this feel, I can see it. It chases it down, it bites it, it kills it. And the terror that that beast feels as he's being killed and the pain, I can feel that. But I also feel it's okay because that's just that's like, I don't know how to, it's just okay. Everything's okay. And like I said, I feel that pain and I would prefer, but I mean, it's just the way life, the way the planet, the way the universe exists. It's just what it does. That's why it's okay. It's not mean or it has no intent. It just is. And that's something I've been experiencing more and more and more, just and is this isness, this okayness of everything. Like I said, I might not like it, I might not prefer it, but in general, deep down, it's all okay. And that's what I feel about untying my knots, what you said. Untie my knots,
I
everything's
guess
okay.
your spiritual name should be Okayananda.
Oh, what?
Okayananda.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
Lord.
Ananda. Or Izzy.
I'm going to
But
call
yeah,
him
untying a
someday.
knots. That's a good analogy. I like that.
Okay. Like to hear today from Veselina. How are you doing, Veselina? How's Bulgaria?
Hi, I haven't had a calm moment until the satsang today. Yeah,
So it feels good.
yeah,
What
but it
was it?
also
Go ahead.
well, I spent recently, like for the last 2 years, I've been spending my time alone, most like 80% of my time. I spend it alone, and when I have to, now that I go out, meet with people, somebody calls me to talk to me, I just remember what it was like. What it was like to be involved so much, and well, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm very tired from the conversations or listening to people, just listening for what they have to say.
You have a strong sense of presence. You will do well. Raju, how are you?
I'm good, Jay. I'm sorry, because of the daylight saving, I had a wrong time on my calendar and I joined 12. So I missed the satsang, but I'm glad to catch a glimpse of all. To me, the deeper the muscles, the nerves, and the relaxation happens, there is this, if I may call, like a movie screen. Previously, the focus used to be on the movie, but now there is this constant, you could say, the reminder or a feel that there is that screen which has to be there, which wants to be there, but it is still. And the sinking is into that stillness is where it is happening. Sometimes maybe the attention may go into the movie, but there is a constant reminder to kind of be in that stillness. That's where there is an effect of pulling or sinking into that, because it is in that stillness that it feels like the rest is like a show, but with that screen, or I caught it the last part of what Mark said, nothingness, or in the Indian cultural context, there is also a name for paripurna. So paripurna is completeness, right? So completeness is where we can't add something and remove something. So whether we want to say nothingness or completeness, it is in that that screen is where that stillness is there, and that is where the resting, the calmness, and a level of you just want to be. You just want to be in that. And that's where the journey is right now.
Thank you. Jay, what about you? I haven't talked to you in a long time.
I use my takeaways from your satsangs to just try to live in the mundane world, not to imbue it with too much. Try to live with from the mantra, nothing to do, nowhere to go, and just put it all down. I'm not sure it's bliss all the time, maybe contentment. I walk through the world and maybe I've read too much, and sometimes I try to evaluate it when I should just let it be. And I think I'm closer to that every time, every satsang. So
You're closer to what? You're closer to
I'm closer to bliss. I'm closer to like an advaita path of non-dual, that whatever we are, we're not the architects of anything. We're lived, we're played. But within that, we have the path. There's an imperative to get it right or wrong, but we're lived regardless of whatever choices we make. So at least
no. What you're saying is really all to do with thinking and judging. But how
too
is
much.
the feeling state? What is the feeling state in you?
The feeling, I have to say bliss. Where I am is an abiding grace from everything, all of my takeaways from all of the years with you, and from everyone in the sangha. I just simply, so simple a thing is nowhere to go, nothing to do, be dumb as a rock. That's who I am. I mean, I nobody. I'm not here. I'm everything from nothing. There's such a perfection in it that you can't even get your head around it. It staggers me. I don't know what to do with it, so I don't do anything with it. I just try to live it.
There you go.
I love you.
Very much so. I love you too. Just keep it up. It's quite a change to go from being an intellectual into being a feeler or a lover.
I try to watch what I share because I don't know what I don't know, so I really
I
don't.
understand.
I don't want to share when it. I think every imperative in all of the books of all of the sages is the people who don't know speak and the people who do know don't. So there's something in there like just shut up. For me, that's for me. Keep quiet, keep trucking.
Or as I put it, shut the fuck up. And just be. Just be. Learn how to be what beingness is from inside of you. What existence is like from inside of you. And When you take your attention off of the external world, the phenomena in the external world, the consciousness begins to weigh more and more heavy on yourself as the subject rather than as being a leaf in a forest. You'll become the center of your whole universe. And the feeling of being the center disappears, and you have complete unity, but with bliss, incredible bliss and power. Power you don't use anymore because you don't want to use it, because you feel the highest joy, the highest sense of being okay when you're doing nothing.
There really is that sense of joy and freedom and that power, and you can't use it, but you know it, and it suffuses you and sustains you, and it is absolutely, it is staggering. It's just pure prana, pure amness.
Be still and know your God. It's so true. You don't really have to do anything to be happy. In fact, the less busy you are doing for yourself or anybody else, the happier you are. There are a lot of people that are doers. So they spend their whole life doing things, including being monks or healthcare workers or psychiatrists or bus drivers. But in all of that, everybody at the heart is just the heart of awareness. You're the awarener, the one who is aware, even though you can't find it separately from phenomenon. But your attention isn't on the phenomenon. It's on you being the birth of the universe. Every moment, through you, the world is created. And our worlds are similar and different at the same time. And there's really not much to be gained of it, exploring the sameness or differentness, because you develop your own trajectory through emptiness, and you get to be a teacher of your own way. And that's why Zen teachers don't interfere much in their students' lives, because they know how important they are. I love you all with the kind of intensity inside of me, a burning, and the happiness at the same time. Take care. If you want to continue setting in another half hour with each other, do so. Bye-bye.
Chris, I just need to clarify something. Arizona doesn't recognize daylight saving time, so it was 12 noon for Edgy. And that still makes it 3 o'clock on the East Coast, unless my math was wrong. I don't know what time. I mean, apparently it started earlier. Mark, you're on the East Coast. I don't know.
It's 2 p.m. It's an hour earlier, so it goes between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. So it'll in the spring it'll be 3 p.m. again, right?
All right, I don't care about the spring. I screwed up today, so at least I got to share something that I'm satisfied with. But yeah, okay.
Just for the record, I just want to say it, for anyone who watches this, it starts at 2 p.m. East Coast, 11 a.m. West Coast.
Yeah, I missed okay.
Chris,
I
what
just want
happened
to
to,
make it into the recording here.
All right.
It's
good.
so people remember, but Arizona doesn't change. That's what screws everything up.
So Chris, unless I misread it, I thought you said that since Arizona doesn't change, 12 noon is still 12 noon in edgy land.
Edgy land,
But
correct.
it's not, somehow, since we went back an hour, it's not 3. I mean, it is 3, but it doesn't, it's 2 hours difference.
Your
that-
clock says when your clock says 2 p.m.
Yeah.
come to edgy.
Okay.
Period.
I'm
It's that
looking at
simple.
I'm looking at a digital clock which had the right time all the time, which changes automatically. When I looked at it at 3 o'clock, which was wrong because the clock had already made the adjustment. I didn't. So the
Right.
next time around, I'll try to extrapolate. I'll write it down and try to rehearse it. And, you know, there's a chance I'll get it wrong. But,
Yeah.
but at least,
It's a challenge because Edgy doesn't change his clock. That Arizona doesn't do it. So everybody else we do it. Like I said, it's 11 a.m. Pacific, 2
Right.
p.m. East Coast. That's the new time to come for Edgy.
but during the week, it's an hour earlier than, it's 1 p.m. East Coast, like Monday through Friday.
We
okay,
didn't
so,
change.
so,
Is that right? Am I right or I'm
We
right?
come the same time every day now.
Oh, you do? So
Monday,
it's still 2
Tuesday,
p.m.
Wednesday,
Okay.
Thursday, Sunday.
Correct.
So it's still
Always
this.
the same time right now.
And I'll just say
Right
it this
now.
way. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 11 a.m. Pacific time.
Okay.
Whatever that is for you. All I
2
know is for
p.m.
me, it's
Yeah,
11
okay.
a.m. Pacific for the off day satsangs. I know it's a confusing.
no, I sort of get it, but it's
I
not.
tried to make it real simple.
Oh, you did. It's not worth the investment in where I am now, and the machinations of it are totally lost. So the next time, and I only really care about Sundays more or less. So
Yes.
Sunday at 2 o'clock, I'm coming and edgy.
Yes.
I'll be here or not,
Yes.
and whatever. Take it from there.
11
Yes.
a.m. Pacific time, yeah?
Yes.
So
11
that's,
a.m. Pacific.
so on the East Coast, it's 3 hours later, which makes it 2
Okay, I can
p.m.
think about it. I can do it that way, even if it isn't 11 a.m. in edgy land, even if it's noon, because as he said, he doesn't fall back. He doesn't. Okay, forget it. I'm
So
done.
now there's no
Yeah.
time difference between Sunday and the other days.
And
Okay.
there's a text flew up from Mike, not Michael, but Mike. Hey, Edgy. And Mike, on the off days, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
And Wednesday.
I'm just saying those are the off days. Oh yeah, on Wednesday, sure. Wednesday, sorry. Doggone it. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We meet. I'm just going to put it in my world. We meet at 11 a.m. Pacific.
Gotcha.
And Edgy isn't normally there, but what we do is we have silence and meditation to devotional music for an hour. That's 11 a.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then on Sunday is Edgy's hour, which again, I'm going to put it in my language, starts at 11 a.m. Pacific. So
Chris, what-
hopefully that was clear.
Yeah,
I tried.
11 a.m. Pacific is good. You put it in Google, it'll tell you what time it is in Pacific.
That's exactly why I said it in my world. That way you can do whatever you got to do to find out what time it is for you.
Right. Which actually makes it, yeah, okay, I'm not going to say because it's different for different people, but when did you actually stop the recording, Chris?
I'm stopping it now
Okay,
because I got into, I thought it would be good to have it on here to tell the world or whoever listens when we meet on edgy days and off days. So now I'm going to stop the recording so we can do whatever we
It
want
might
to
be
do
a
for
really
silence.
good idea
Yeah,
if you want to have a daily sitting for everybody.
yeah,
Just that's the way it works in a Zendo. You don't have Roshi talking every day. You
Yeah.
are mutually together in an environment.
yes.
and you can feel especially if spiritual music is being played throughout at a low
Yes.
level.
And that's what we do on the off days. So it starts with
I would
silence,
suggest
and
that
then we play
everybody
music.
attend.
I'm sorry.
I would suggest everybody attend as many days as they can.
Yeah.
To get that feeling of solidity in
Yes.
yourself.
I've said this. My promotional statement on this is, when I was working, I could only come in for a few minutes a day to these off day sessions, and it was spectacular in that to have that little break, to have that, to get out of my head, the chaos of my job. Now that I'm retired, I feel the frequency of coming to these sessions is, to me, more important than the duration, is to keep coming back, keep coming. It's like working out a
Yes.
spiritual muscle.
Yes.
To change from I being in my head to being in my, I don't know, spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's a big coming every day, just little by little works that muscle and brings me and brought me more and more to a place where I wasn't in my head looking at meditation. I was in meditation and my head would come into it, but it was a whole different focus. It's everything changed, a whole perspective changed from looking, like I said, being in my head and going to meditation every once in a while to being in meditation all the time. And my head is part of that meditation. My body is part of that. It's, to me, the frequency of coming every day is what did that. And being quiet. We don't, we talk sometimes, but it's mostly quiet meditation. And I think that helped me tremendously, even if it's only a few minutes a day. Like I said, if you got to work, that's cool. I just take a minute or 2 or 5 minutes and just relax. It's wonderful. It did me. It was wonderful. I loved it. And I didn't really know about it. I didn't really feel, I mean, it's cumulative. It's like working out. You work the muscle every day. It doesn't look any different. But after a few years, you're like, holy crap, I'm different. If I feel different, I think different, I feel different. It creeps up on you if you just keep doing it.
So the people who want to have a regular practice can do it by coming every day at the same time
Yeah,
and meeting together. And
Yeah.
that's good, strong practice.
yeah. We're here every day
Except Saturday.
except Saturday. We just decided to take Saturdays off,
Okay.
but every day but Saturday. And like I said, it's the same format every day. Silence, meditation, silence, music, silence.
Okay.
And it's 11 a.m. Pacific time. So just put that in Google. And when it's 11
day.
a.m. Pacific time, show up.
Yep.
Sunday now.
Yep.
Okay.
That's Monday through Friday.
All right. Now I'm going to stop the recording because I really think it was important to have all that on the recording so that anyone listening to it can hear the time, Edgy's endorsement, whatever. But I'm going to stop the recording. If you want to, we can talk about whatever or sit quietly or, just off it goes.